When cars first hit the road, safety wasn't a priority. Seatbelts, airbags, crumple zones weren't standard features. And it wasn't until people started getting seriously injured that manufacturers were then forced to accept and adopt safety measures. However, even now, with safety built into every vehicle, responsibility doesn't stop there. Parents and caregivers are expected to secure infants in car seats, ensure kids are buckled up, and follow all the traffic laws. And if they don't, well, they face penalties if they're caught. But what if we accept the same logic to social media and technology? Social media platforms today started out eerily reminiscent of early car manufacturers. When they first launched, there was not a whole lot of thought around safety. And the goal was all about user acquisition and profit. And, still today, social networks are still trying to make some money. But when we're looking at things and exposure to inappropriate content, exploration, and some material and health challenges, yet it looks very similar to early car manufacturers, and these platforms have no real incentive to prioritize safety unless mandated by law. Now, regulation is coming, but regulations need to be well thought out and not just a knee-jerk reaction to problematic opinions that there are no evidence to support. Governments worldwide are beginning to discuss holding tech companies accountable for safety on their platforms. But here's a question. If a car manufacturer had to implement safety features and parents were then still fined for failing to use them properly, should parents also bear responsibility for ensuring their kids use online safety features once implemented by the technology and social media companies? Many parents are the ones who purchase devices for their kids, often bending the rules by social media that typically has no one can join their platform under the age of 13 as their rules, terms, and services, especially when they state 13 is the age. Despite increasing awareness of risk, how often do parents just overlook basic digital literacy measures that activating parental controls could help alleviate? If a child knowingly bypasses these safeguards and then incurs some kind of online harm due to a parent or caregiver ignoring and implementing these safeguards, should the parent or caregiver share any of the blame? Consider this analogy. A parent who allows a toddler to ride in a car without a car seat, faces fines, restrictions, punishment if they fail to protect the child. Why should digital parenting be any different? By handing children a device that are often designed for adults and granting access to platforms without ensuring adequate safeguards, some parents are essentially and metaphorically placing their kids in the driver's seat of a digital Ferrari to travel down the digital highway without a seatbelt or car seat. Critics may argue that the ultimate responsibility lies only with social media companies. After all, these are the entities profiting from children's attention. Don't get us wrong, we do believe that these companies have a huge responsibility that most are being willfully blind to. However, even if tech giants eventually implement safety features, much like cars evolved to include seatbelts, those features are meaningless if parents or caregivers don't enforce their use. Would a parent or caregiver allow a young person into a moving car on a roadway or highway without a seatbelt on? No amount of regulation will be enough if parents remain passive participants. Again, you wouldn't let a young person climb into a car without securing them safely. Why would they be allowed to roam the online spaces unprotected? Here's a radical hypothetical that we know some parents will admittedly disagree with. If a parent and a caregiver fails to ensure that their kids are using safety features on online platforms like social media or online gaming, should the parent or caregiver face fines or other ramifications similar to allowing a young person not to wear a seatbelt in a moving car? Imagine being fined because a kid accessed a platform that they're too young for, or because there was a failure in activating parental control features on phones and social platforms if they are available, or allowing them to do something on a social platform in another violation of their terms and services. Such a hypothetical law would undoubtedly be controversial, but it would immediately shift the conversation towards a shared accountability and responsibility if implemented. Ultimately, parenting in the online world requires a proactive approach. It's not enough to trust that platforms will eventually do the right thing, and parents must step up, educate themselves, and enforce the safeguards that do exist today and will exist in the future. After all, the internet, like an open road, can be dangerous. As with vehicles coming equipped with airbags, someday children's safety will always depend on the adult behind the wheel. In the end, keeping kids safe in the online world demands partnership between governments, social media companies, and most critically, parents and caregivers. Just as cars became safer only after societal outcry and regulation, social media platforms will require similar pressures implemented and creating safety by design, by law. But even then, those measures will only be as effective as the parents and caregivers ensuring their use properly. Handing a child an unsupervised device with unrestricted access to the online world is no different than putting them in a car without a seatbelt. Safety isn't just a feature, it is a parental and caregiver responsibility. If parents and caregivers can face penalties for neglecting those duties in the online world, much like they would on the road, then why not implement something like that? While this hypothetical idea of fines might spark debate and even outrage among some, it underscores a vital truth that protecting kids online is not just a job of corporations or governments. It also starts at home. The internet, much like the open road, can be extraordinary as a tool for connection, discovery, engagement, fun, and potential future job growth. But it also comes with risk. And it's time for parents and caregivers to recognize that while technology evolves, there is a role as protectors to remain steadfast as that role and protector. No regulation or platform upgrade can replace the vigilance, an engaged and informed parent or caregiver. As we navigate this evolving online landscape, it is essential to acknowledge that safety is not a one-size-fits-all solution. Parents and caregivers need to balance trust with oversight, granting kids freedom to explore while ensuring they do so within the boundaries designed to protect them. This means taking active steps, learning about platforms that young people use, teaching digital literacy, enabling safety settings, and having conversations about the risk and responsible behavior online. It requires a cultural shift in how we view online parenting, just as no one would argue that installing a car seat for an infant or toddler is an overreaction. Ensuring digital safeguards should be seen as a non-negotiable aspect of modern parenting. At the same time, holding tech companies accountable remains crucial. While parents bear some responsibility, the platforms profiting from children's attentions must be compelled to make safety a core priority and not as an afterthought. Governments do need to accelerate regulatory efforts, enforcing strict penalties for platforms who fail to protect vulnerable users. Ultimately, the goal isn't to place the blame, but to foster shared responsibility and accountability. Just as the safety of passengers in a car depends on both the manufacturer's design and a driver's vigilance. Online safety for kids hinge on a combined effort from tech companies, lawmakers, parents, and caregivers. In this partnership, parents and caregivers play the most immediate and impactful role. By taking proactive steps, by embracing their responsibility, this can ensure that the digital tools meant to empower young people don't become instruments of harm. Whether it's behind the wheel or behind a screen, the safety of the next generation depends on the decisions we make today. It's time to put real weight behind this idea that keeping kids safe online is a shared responsibility between companies, governments, parents, and caregivers. This was intentionally crafted to provoke some thought and ignite discussion about presenting a hypothetical idea that we recognize many may not initially react to or respect. However, by setting aside those emotional reactions and examining the arguments objectively, it bears evident that at its core, some truth that is worth considering. The purpose is not to alienate or criticize, but to challenge conventional thinking and encourage a deeper exploration of parental and caregiver responsibility. In today's online world, sometimes the most meaningful conversations arise by confronting uncomfortable ideas. This hypothetical thesis isn't about assigning blame, but about fostering a sense of shared accountability and responsibility between parents, caregivers, tech companies, and society as a whole. It is an invitation to collect and reevaluate and engage in a dialogue about how we can collectively protect young people in an increasingly connected world. By looking beyond the initial discomfort, we aim here to shed light on a critical issue and inspire actionable change by all stakeholders. After all, progress often begins when we dare to question and disrupt the status quo. Let us know what you think down below and stay connected with us here in the White Hatter as we talk about everything online safety, digital literacy, and privacy.